So I am a massive fan of colossal weapons. The power you get when you just smack an opponent and absolutely obliterate them is second to none. And with the release of the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC, there has been quite a few new additions that really make some two-handed weapon feels broken. So in this Elden Ring video, I'm going to be showing you my Unkillable Unholy Knight face strength build. This build is designed around being able to block attacks and follow up with solid AoE that deals holy damage. Being a large blunt weapon that we're using, it does some pretty nice stagger to enemies who dare to survive the initial hit. The weapon in question we're using is the Sacred Black Steel Greathammer, which bolsters a triple scaling between Faith, Dex, and Strength. But with the Ash of War Prayer Strike that we added to it, it does change the scaling a bit to favor a little bit more towards Faith. Meaning if you hit an opponent with this Ash of War, it will heal you a considerable amount while also dealing some pretty insane damage and giving you noticeable poise during the animation. Keep in mind most of, if not all of the footage in this video is not buffed with any of the other incantations that give you considerable damage, so you do quite a bit and there's plenty of room for improvement. On top of this, because this weapon has a unique guard counter, you can do this right after you get hit while blocking and just use a heavy attack. The weapon then will do a counter that does a holy base slam, dealing 2 procs of damage and a ton of stagger. You can farm this weapon from quite a few Black Steel Knights roaming around the world, usually on horseback, but they are a fairly common enemy type. On the other hand, to find the last component of this build, you will need to get the two-handed Sword's Talisman, which enhances the attack of two-handed weapons. This can easily be found at the Temple Town's ruins. On the map, I'm showing you how to path there, but here's exactly where to find it once you get there. Alright, now we are on the build section of the video, so let me show you exactly the equipment. Now if you saw the intro, then you should be very well aware of where to find the Sacred Black Steel Greathammer plus 25. This is very common enemies that you can find. They're like the guys riding on the horses, or they're using this weapon. Should be fairly easy to get. And then we're using the Prayer Strike. This is found in, I believe, Lindell's capital in the little water area right before you go into the west side of it. It's been a while since I played it, but that's in the base game. There's probably plenty of videos going over where to find it in the past 3 years, so go check those out. We are using the Dragon Communion Seal for this. You don't necessarily have to, we're just using this, but use the ones that's best for you, whatever you want. For our armor, we're using the Black Knight Helm. I believe this is only found in the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC. I'm also using the Knight's Cavalry armor because it looks really cool. I'm using the Lionel's Gauntlets because again it kind of fits, it's like kind of dark and has some heaviness to it. And then I'm using the Oathseeker Knight's Greaves. If you're trying to find the Oathseeker set, I have a link down in the description that will be able to go over this. It also shows you where to get the Peta, I believe it's called, just like a fist weapon, as well as the Mana Regeneration Talisman. So go check that video out after you watch this video, of course. And yeah, this is pretty much the armor set that you're going to be going with. In all honesty though, if I'm not just making a theme style video, I would actually implore you to get a heavier set of armor to give you better poise. Again, I'm just going with a theme, but you can go with much heavier armor, which means you're going to need more endurance, but that's what I would do if I'm really trying to be unkillable. Now, to quickly go over the talismans, we're going to be using the Dragon Crest Great Shield Talisman. This can be found in the, I think, Erdtree area in the base game. This is going to give you, I believe, 20% physical damage reduction. You're going to be man fighting quite a bit, so it's really important to have this, so definitely pick it up. We also have the Curved Sword Talisman. This will enhance your guard counters, and since we're going to be guard countering quite a bit, this is very noticeable damage increase, and you definitely should be putting it on this build. In addition, we're going to be using the Two-Handed Swords Talisman. This enhances your attack with two-handed weapons. We went over this in the intro because this is very unique to the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC, and this once again is a noticeable amount of damage, so it's really worth getting. We also got the Sacred Scorpion Charm. This is going to increase your holy attack but lower some of the damage negation. I don't like putting too many of these in my talisman slots because it does give you some extra actual damage taken in Erdtree deals a lot of damage in this DLC, so be mindful of this. But if I would have to pick anything, I would pick these up right here because they work really well. Alternatively, here are some other options that you can use. You can use the Blessed Blue Dew Talisman. This is going to be a talisman in the Erdtree DLC. Once again, you can find it with the Oathkeeper Knight's Gauntlets. I'll have the video again linked down in the description. And this is going to slowly regenerate your mana. This is actually really good because you do use a little bit of mana in order to do your like healing counterattack, the like Blessed Strike one. And so you can use this to kind of top yourself off, which is another great option. Otherwise, you can get the Crimson Amber Medallion +3. This is going to give you a ton of HP. I use a rune arc that uses like that gives me like HP and mana, so it's not that big of a deal to use these for me personally. And I get like 55 HP, typically 50 to 55 HP, so I don't really need this as much. But if you want to have a little bit more vigor, this is going to go a long way and give you some HP. Alternatively, also you can use the Verdaean Amber Medallion. This is going to give you stamina. It does require quite a bit of stamina to block some of the opponents in the Shadow of the Erdtree because they do hit like a truck. So just keep in mind, if you do need some extra like stamina, this can kind of help you out. And then finally, the Claw Talisman. You do a lot of damage with the hammer just inherently, so jump attacks always do like extra damage, and this can really work well. I really like the jump attack on pretty much any weapon I do that's like a colossal weapon because they're kind of broken. But yeah, the Claw Talisman can be another option. Quickly, let's go over the stats because these are fairly important, and just keep in mind what I have isn't necessarily ideal, but I'll tell you what you should in theory use. So first off, for vigor, I like 50. I'm a big fan of just having 50 because I don't think you need it if you're using rune arcs. At the very beginning of like the initial base game, I didn't know what rune arcs were for, and now I'm sitting on like 50 of them, so I use the ones that give me HP and mana. I know some people are out, but yeah, I don't really need it because I have a lot of vigor. But if you don't have a lot of vigor, go ahead and get it to maybe 60, and I'll probably stop there. For the mind, that's kind of about the same. You can probably get away with 25, especially if you're using the Blessed Blue Dew Talisman. That's going to give you like mana regeneration and sustain, and you don't need that much mana outside of buffing. For endurance, ideally, honestly, I would actually raise this a little bit higher. Maybe push that to like 35 because I have a hard time with maintaining some of the enemies that hit really hard, like the fast attackers, and the endurance can go a long way, especially when you're blocking. Again, I'm a little bit lower level. I'm only 143. A lot of players enter into the DLC at about 150 or so. So, you know, I started at like 102. So I was a little under level compared to others. So yeah, just keep that in mind. You could raise that a little bit higher. We have 23 on strength. Eventually, once we get our faith to the soft gap, we're going to start scaling that, since that is going to be our second best scaling. And that's the benefit of having a like multi-scaling weapon. You get a lot of damage once you get levels. Unfortunately, I'm not that high level, relatively speaking. I don't get as much benefit. So again, a lot of room for growth for those of you who actually are higher level, and this build is going to be much stronger than what you visually see. And that's kind of why I really like making builds, because I don't show you being strong, I show you being weaker than what you naturally would be, at least when my playthrough. And by the time you actually get into the game and you actually use like all the buffs and get your character to really good stats, you're much stronger than what you see, rather than like a lot of people who make builds show you when they're absolutely overpowered and overtuned. I think this is a much healthier approach. Anyway, no more ranting. You have 16 in dex to meet the minimum, 7 in intelligence because we're dumb, 60 for faith because obviously we want to scale with faith, and then 11 on arcane because we do not need arcane. So that is all the stats. Finally, for our spells, let's quickly go over these. And like I said before, I didn't use any of those in the footage, so you're going to get a lot more benefit than what you see in the footage. We're going to be using Flame Grant Me Strength. This is a very common one to use in any faith build because it raises your physical damage. We don't really take advantage of the fire part of it, but again, the physical is very powerful. You definitely want to use it. On the other hand, we also use Golden Vow, increases attack and defense for self and allies. A no-brainer usage, and this is going to give us even more damage since we do a ton of it anyway, so we're going to be really strong. For me, I like using Lord's Heal. This is going to give you a ton of healing in the event that you kind of need it. You're not using that much mana outside of just buffing yourself, unless you like add it to the build yourself. So this is super good for giving you a ton of health because your health actually does get really high and you have a lot of mana to use. Finally, my only other recommendation will be blessing boons because this will give you some healing over time. I believe it's 720 healing over 90 seconds or something like that. It's been a while, but it gives quite a bit of healing, which will be like a ton of healing over the duration. And when you're blocking and kind of man fighting, it's a lot of like top up healing, which works really well. Outside of that though, you can kind of just go whatever you want. You have plenty of spell slots and you can put more offensive stuff if you want to cast, more defensive stuff if you want to stay alive. But overall, this is going to be the like spells that you need to use. And yeah, that's pretty much it. And there you have it, guys. That is my Unkillable Unholy Knight build. This build is super fun and one of my favorites simply because you just bonk everything. You're really defensive and the stagger is insane. And of course, I really love the black theme. So a build I would highly recommend if you're interested in playing like a bonk build that has faith in strength scaling. With that said, guys, that's going to be it for this one. Feel free to leave me a like as well as subscribe to the channel for more Elden Ring videos. And down in the comment section, feel free to leave me some suggestions because I am making a ton of builds for Elden Ring. And yeah, just like that, I'll see you guys in the next Elden Ring video very soon.